You're in the 06010. Focus. Fantasy Focus.
Hello and welcome to Fantasy Focus Football presented by Boost Mobile. My name is Daniel Dopp here with my two best friends, Fields Yates and Mike Clay. Yesterday we did a very big Week 7 ranking show. Went through the entirety of the positions. Today we're going to dive in a little bit deeper on a couple of the backfields that maybe you be having some question marks on, obviously. Yeah. And we're going to do a lock it in or lock it out quarterback segment, guys that are either locked in or locked out of your fantasy lineup. And if we have a little bit of time, maybe we'll get to some of the questions that we missed yesterday in the show. But first, I want to say this, Field. You and I dipped our toes into the fantasy NBA waters last night, baby. Our first fantasy basketball draft.
Yeah, first one. Last one was, Mike. Basketball, NBA.
NBA beats.
Basketball, Apple. I don't know.
Yes.
So I texted one of our league mates, Adam Schefter, who's been an absolute heater in that league. He's won like 3 out of 4 championships. And so I reached out this morning. I said, how do you like your team? Figuring he'd have some very nuanced response about how, like, here are the areas of strength. Here are the areas I'm concerned about. And he offered, like, I don't really know. You just never know. But your team looks awesome. So he's probably lying.
Yeah, that's it.
Now,
yes.
My team is probably stacked. I don't exactly know because I have zero idea how my team actually is. As much as we love fantasy football, I feel like, one of the blind mice playing basketball. I just have no idea what I am doing, but I enjoy the heck out of it.
That's me in hockey.
Yeah. That's it.
It's so hard to keep up with all. In hockey, there's just so many players coming through and everything's changed so much. I have a hard time with that.
Did you guys, by the way, put a blindfold on when you put on your mic flags? As both of you guys,
I didn't do it.
Upside down.
Gosh, you're right.
Wow, Mike,
you're right.
Television is always throws.
It was in the show note.
Under the bus.
It was in the show note to put them upside down today. It's upside down, National Upside Down Day, and
I forgot about that.
Can't be bothered to participate.
I will say this though. Daniel said, "Welcome in and say hello to your two best friends." I have an updates ranking, Daniel, and just for a day, not for good, but just for a day, I have to say,
okay,
you're number 2. Because I'm still so touched by it. I wore my Alan Lazard jersey all day yesterday. I got so many compliments. Some kid came up to me and he was like, holy crap. He was like, do you know Alan Lazard? And I was like, not personally, but I certainly revere him. And he was like, did you know that in my class recently, we were doing sort of a mock first take show? And I said, well, that's interesting. So like you guys like debated important topics. And they were like, yes, we dove into it. And I was like, well, what'd you guys debate? I was thinking like, maybe like MJ versus LeBron.
Sure.
Like
classic.
perhaps like
Barry Sanders versus Emmitt Smith. Yeah.
Right. And he was like, no, we got into the most spirited debate was who's the greatest receiver of all time, Jerry Rice or Alan Lazard. Now, interestingly enough, Lazard collected 94% of the votes, but Jerry Rice did get 6. So that's not bad. I mean, going up against Alan Lazard is a tall task.
All right, so back to NBA talk. I appreciate, of course, the autograph card you gave me. I went home and put it in the box in the basement with my Chad Pennington rookie cards and my Rick Meyer collection.
Oh God!
Someday we'll have to go through
Mark
that.
Martin.
We'll have to go through some of those and make sure.
Yeah, you should. You should come over sometime and see the absolute gems I have. Worth a grand total of like 42 cents, probably.
I mean, until yesterday, they were worth that much. Now they might be worth thousands.
You have no idea.
That's true. My dad thought Rick Meyer was going to be like the next big thing in the league, and we bought like every single rookie card. I have like the whole collection.
That's amazing.
And I don't know.
Does your dad still do quarterback evaluations?
No, he was fired by what's the team that has bad quarterback history? Not the Packers.
The Browns.
Yeah, there you go.
He was fired by the Browns.
He's probably been hired by the Browns based off of the Rick Meyer take. All right.
Well, we should get into it. One thing I'll just say this. I did not get a rankings grade for our NBA fantasy draft.
Oh, I was going to ask you that. Yeah. I do those too. If you think I'm blind doing football, good luck with those NBA.
But
no, I don't.
I wonder how many players, like if we just started naming random names, plus the names from the players that we drafted from our teams, like could Mike identify 25% of them that were actual players?
I don't know, but we should do that.
We should do that.
That'd be a fun challenge. I thought about it. There was a moment after I started working here a couple of years in where there was some talk about like, hey, you can do another sport. And I thought about dipping my toe into NBA. Started working on like a staff feed to do the projections and everything. But it became a point where it's like, how do you do it with the overlap? If football and basketball didn't overlap, there was a chance of that. But I thought about it. So I went the opposite direction. Now I'm like, I don't know.
It's never working.
Any players.
There we go. Mike, just as he always does, just finding a way to just dip responsibility and cut corners and not have to work hard.
It was tough.
Speaking of which, my 2 articles are on the site, updated Dynasty and week 7 rankings, rest of season, full projections, IDP, punters, you name it. So they're all updated. But yeah.
All right, let's get to it.
All right.
None of this crap from this guy.
None of it really matters with Mike,
Ball starts at 10:05.
All right, let's talk about a couple of running back situations that maybe you need to have a better pulse on navigating the week 7 running back room. Let's start with the Commanders. Brian Robinson Jr. has been banged up. I know it's a little
Don't
sonar.
watch the show. I really feel bad for you. Like you should, for no other reason than to see what our producer Tyler comes up with graphically almost every single day.
Yeah, it's fantastic, right?
It really is. Yeah.
Tyler's really elevated the show to a good level. Tyler, we're so sorry you have to deal with us on a daily
Mike is doing
basis.
his best to drag it down. Tyler is doing his best to.
Hey, I brought that authentic Allen Lazard jersey.
That's
yesterday.
true. You know, that's true.
I did my part.
Let's talk about the Commanders running backs. Brian Robinson Jr. aiming to return this week after coming back from a knee injury. And if he does come back, I don't want to bury the lead. He just has a juicy matchup here, Field Yates.
Yeah, he sure does. It's a great matchup against the Panthers this weekend. On top of that, the last 3 games that Brian Robinson has played more than 21 snaps in the first half when the team basically said, all right, we're going to shut you down for the second half because this game is out of hand. 59% of the snaps, 75% of the snaps, 64% of the snaps. He is the lead back.
Yes, he
in
is.
this backfield, at least 16 carries in all 3 of those games. And while Austin Eckler is playing well and might see a decent role in the passing game, when they get close to the goal line, nobody has a better shot in that backfield amongst the running backs to get a carry than Brian Robinson Jr. He now has 11 goal-to-goal rushes. That's tied for the 3rd most amongst running backs. And you can say, well, like, yeah, but he has to get to the goal line to actually have those opportunities. Have you seen this offense this season?
Yeah, we're getting there.
A scoring machine. Austin Siebert's been like one of the best waiver pickups of the year. He's a kicker. So Brian Robinson, my RB10 this week, Mike.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Has averaging a touchdown per game. And you mentioned last week where he only played a handful of snaps, only 7 touches in that 2 weeks ago. Yeah, only 7 touches in that game. Was still a top 25 scorer because he had 2 touchdowns. He's been a top 25 scorer in every game this season. Just to put numbers on your point, Daniel, Panthers, most yards, touchdowns, and fantasy points to running backs. They've allowed a 20-point performance to a running back in 5 of their 6 games so far this season. I believe it was the Raiders. It was not a very good backfield or a committee.
It was the
backfield.
Raiders.
Was it? Yeah. So that did not get it done. So outstanding situation here for Brian Robinson.
Yeah. I do love the idea that it feels like he is locked in, not only at the goal line. Field, you mentioned all the goal line work that he gets. The only person that really feels like he's taking goal line touches from, it's not Austin Eckler or Jeremy McNichols, obviously. It's the quarterback and Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
But he still very clearly has a goal line role. I do want to say, Austin Eckler has not gone away. Even when Brian Robinson has been there, he's had at least double-digit fantasy points in every single game this season. If you want to talk about a guy that I wouldn't have expected to be able to say, you know what, you can throw him in as a flex if you just need to have a nice, safe floor. Yeah. Austin Eckler has delivered that so far this year. And again, against the Panthers, it feels like he could continue that trend.
It's running back, so I don't want to knock him too much. I do wonder if we're due for like a potential dud here from Austin Eckler for this reason.
Ooh.
At some point, right? Like at some point, there could be a little bit of a crash landing here for Eckler in a single game. I'm not saying every week, but in 4 games of Brian Robinson healthy and actually playing, Eckler has a total of 30 opportunities. That's carries plus targets. So
7 touches
7.5 per game. That's not a huge number by any stretch. He is very consistent though right now. He has been running back 25 exactly. He's been exactly running back 25 3 times already this season.
Yeah, that's kind of what we expected coming in with his skills in the PPR game. He's been super efficient. Big dip last week with Robinson out in terms of efficiency, but they're playing Baltimore. That was maybe the toughest challenge in the NFL. He actually had 68 yards in that game. That was the second most by a running back against the Ravens this season.
Crazy.
So I point that out just in case. We've seen this how many times already, including Monday night with James Cook. If there's a setback and Robinson misses this game, Eckler, you feel great about in this matchup. We'll probably rank him around where we have Robinson around 10 because you're going to have some Jeremy McNichols. But in this excellent matchup with the volume Eckler is going to see, you're going to feel pretty good about it.
Just to put a number to my ranking, RB 31 for Eckler. I'm not saying
me too.
He should not be in line. I'm just saying, like, if all of a sudden there's like 1 week where Austin Eckler gets you like 4.5 fantasy points, it's like, okay, like if you get 7 opportunities, that may happen every once in a while.
Yeah, he's not a guy you feel great starting right now, assuming Robinson's playing. He's just not, there's not enough touches there.
The only reason that I would feel I don't want to say super good about it because I'm in the same spot that you guys do, running back 32, is just the backfield. I feel like we've seen this Panthers offense give up good fantasy points, not just to the lead running back. We watched it happen in Atlanta. We've watched it happen a number of times where it's like eventually they're not going to give Brian Robinson 30-plus touches.
It's going to end up being Jeremy McNichols in the fourth quarter when the Commanders are up, 21 points, and McNichols finds the end zone twice, and you're like, wait.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen that more this year than ever before. The third running back getting a lot of garbage time work.
This graphic that we have up really talks about it. Week 1, 35 points to running backs. Week 2, 27 points to running back. Week 3, 20 points. That's the week that they played the Raiders, like you talked about. And then week 4, 5, and 6, 41, 35, and 45 points to fantasy running backs those weeks. Wow. So somebody is in line for a good week.
Yeah, remember, they have one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL on their roster, but he's on IR. Derek Brown, losing him early on was just devastating for a defense that I thought would be okay, like maybe 20th best this year, but losing a player like that, that'll crush you. That'll crush you. You saw it. You see with the Rams of losing. I mean, that defense last year was not good on paper, so inexperienced, and they hit some gems in the draft, but like having Aaron Donald really helped them last year. He's not there this year.
Yeah.
And it's really bad.
It's noticeable. Yeah. All right, let's talk about another set of running backs here. Mike, New York Giants taking on your Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah.
It is. Interesting one.
We see this a little bit differently. Field and I have Tyrone Tracy ranked ahead of Devin Singletary just by a smidge. You have Devin Singletary ranked ahead of Tyrone Tracy. Tell us why you like Singletary a little bit more.
You guys have Tracy ahead?
We do.
Yes,
just
I have
a smidge.
Tracy is RB29. Singletary is RB36 this week.
You were texting me about this. You're like,
hold on. I'll tell you what I was texting you about. We can reveal that part of the conversation, but you start.
All right. I'm giving a slight edge to Singletary here. I think, first of all, the fact that he missed games, like never missed games. Yeah. He never misses games. He's been the most reliable running back in the league for years. So that was a big deal. But look, 16 and a half touches during weeks 1 through 4 this season. The yards per carry is down a little bit compared to his career 3.9, but that's actually a decent number when you consider that he's faced one of the heaviest, on average, the heaviest boxes in the NFL this season. So he's had to overcome that, and he's played pretty well. Eagles allowing 5 yards per carry. So they've only allowed 1 touchdown, but efficiency-wise haven't been great. So I know Tyrone Tracy has been really effective the last couple of weeks, and I think his role will be larger than it was earlier this season. But I think Singletary comes back and gets a shot back, not to necessarily lose his job. And by the way, Tracy, not overly effective on the ground last week. He did some damage in the passing game.
For 50 yards.
It was 3 yards per. Yeah. So I don't think he's done enough where it's like, man, he's like the next coming, and he's the clear one. I could be wrong, but I think Singletary gets a shot to be the 1A.
Yeah. So Mike said that was what I was. Weren't you texting me about this? And what I was texting Mike about was like, I've seen some people that are now suggesting that like Tyrone Tracy takes over a massive workhorse role, and Devin Singletary is little more than like, if we need him, we will utilize him. Assuming Devin Singletary is healthy, by the way, in this and I was like, man, I just don't think it's going to be the Tyrone Tracy show unto himself in the way that it has been these past couple of weeks with Devin Singletary filling into that second running back role, which has been Eric Gray over these past couple of weeks for a few reasons. First of all, Devin Singletary, not an amazing player, but not a terrible player either. I mean, this season, he's already finished his RB10 1 week, RB22 a second time. Mike mentioned how much he was being utilized early on in the year. He played between 69 and 80% of the snaps in the first 4 games. It was his job by himself. His coach staff likes him, right? They just do. Brian Daboll and him have been together. They gave him a real contract this offseason. 3 years and close to $20 million. I don't think he just evaporates. But I also am not convinced that he plays the same role as he did prior to the injury, which is why I have Tyrone Tracy with a bit of an edge here, with the potential for Tyrone Tracy to get some passing game utilization that helps boost his ceiling.
And by the way, I like Tracy. I liked him coming into the draft. But I mean, again, keep in mind, I said Singletary against all these stack boxes at 3.9 yards per carry. Last week, Tracy was at 2.9 against the Bengals run defense. He's been atrocious against the run this year. I mean, it's not like he knocked it out of the park in that department. Like, I don't think he's done enough where you're just like, oh man, he's just like the guy now. So
I would agree.
I think Singletary gets a shot back, assuming he's healthy and good to go against the Eagles.
Is this a board bet situation, or is there not enough of a gap here between these two guys to do a board bet?
I'll bet anything. I would literally board bet anything in my entire life.
Wow. Assuming, I would just say with the assumption I'm rolling with now is that Singletary's back and he's good to go.
Right. It's not like Daboll says, hey, on Friday, he's going to play, but we're playing him a total of 15 snaps. Yeah, right. That's it, right?
Assuming he's good to go and off the injury report.
I love that board bet. You want to do it?
Sure. I'll just take straight up.
Tyrone Tracy versus Devin Singletary this week. All right, first.
Go ahead.
You go.
I say Devin Singletary outscores Tyrone Tracy in fantasy points here in week number 7.
And I say we say Tyrone Tracy outscores Devin Singletary in fantasy points in week 7.
Put it on the
Put
board.
it on the board.
We got our sounder because we're in our old studio today. That's
That's
nice.
right.
So nice.
Love that.
I don't know how this is possible, but somehow I haven't lost a board bet since 2018. I don't see that streak coming to an end this weekend.
Yeah, it's funny. They're never on the note when I win the board bets, but when he wins them, they're just all the details.
Won?
Yeah,
I know I got the Juwan Jennings one, but last week you were like, "Oh, you crushed me in board bets," but there's no sign of them. I don't even remember any of them.
Do I?
Yeah,
Am I the
you do.
producer of the show?
You do. I saw you working on the.
I'm typing notes. I have meticulous notes. Although how is it that? How do printers never have good ink?
That's a great
Swear
question.
to God, every 10 minutes, I print something and I'm like, why is every third line not appearing?
It's like a big
I want
row.
Printers.
Yeah.
You take out the toner and you shake it.
Yes, it's
put
just
it
like
back
a
in.
Nintendo cartridge back
That's
in the
exactly
day.
right.
You expect me to know what a toner is? What is a toner?
That's the big thing with the ink in it.
Oh, really? Does this actually work?
Now it's called right.
Yeah, it's toner.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're
Shake
talking
it up.
about laser printers.
Yeah, right.
Nerds.
Yeah. What, do you not have a laser
Try to help
printer at
him, and he
home?
calls me in there.
I know, right? Jeez, Field.
Are you a nerd?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, definitely, 100%. All right, let's talk about the Jags and the Patriots. Another game over there in England, guys. Looks like we heard this before. We'll get official word, but it doesn't feel like we're going to get Travis Etienne. Hasn't officially been ruled out, but he is week to week with a hamstring injury, so we're expecting more from Tank Bigsby in this one. We did see a fair amount of Dearness Johnson last week, but like I mentioned earlier this week, all of that run was basically in the second half where you saw Dearness Johnson. How are you breaking down both of these Jaguars running backs, Field?
Got me some Tank Bigsby at running back 23 this week. Is this more of an Australian accent?
Yeah, that's not it. That's the wrong one, sir.
You know what? I'm going to roll with it. So I don't have much of a British accent, so we'll stick with the Australian accent.
Sounds like the guy that calls NASCAR races now.
Wait, who's that, Mike?
I'm
Mike?
spaced on his name, but he just took over because he's just more like
A little bit
engaging. He's more energetic, but he has the strong accent.
There might be
used
some-
to do Indy.
There might be some Aussies who live in London, so perhaps we'll give them a shout out right here. I've got Tank Bigsby.
I feel like I'm watching the Wildlife Channel right now, and you're going to wrestle a crocodile.
Yeah, this is not bad.
Yeah.
This is not a bad.
It's not
accent.
terrible.
Can we put up a poll to say how good is Fields' Australian accent?
Yeah, there it
Is it passable or not
I think
passable?
it's really good, actually. I'm not going to lie.
I'm awful at accents, so I'm
I
not
have a
going to
little
do it.
trivia for you guys. This is very Mike Clay trivia of me. How many players with a minimum of 20 carries have averaged more yards per rushing attempt this season than Tank Bigsby?
1.
69.
How the heck did Mike know that?
Is that 1? Is that right?
It's
Oh,
one.
Dang it.
Kyler
You
Murray.
got to take the opposite ends of the spectrum there. That's why I
I
was.
still like Daniels. That was a nice guess by you. So Tank is my RB23 this week. A few spots ahead of you, Daniel. Just 2 ahead of Mike. But I actually think this is a pretty darn good spot for Tank with one mitigating factor. But he's averaging 7.2 yards per attempt. So he's been very effective when he has gotten this work. Kyler is a little over 8 yards. So he is number 1 amongst players with 20 or more attempts. The Patriots' run defense has fallen apart.
yes.
Look at the past 4 games for the Patriots. And this is total rushing yards allowed because they've faced some teams that either rely on multiple backs or because the Patriots are booty, they are facing backup running backs in like the second half, and late in the fourth quarter as well. Last 4 games, the Patriots have allowed 192 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, 193 yards and a touchdown on the ground, 148 yards and a touchdown on the ground, and 133 yards and a touchdown on the ground.
Wow.
I think Tank
All bad.
Bigsby needs to score a touchdown and reach over 100 yards to be a top 15 finisher. It's possible, though, in this matchup. As we know, Mike, the big mitigating factor is he does not catch passes.
Yeah, it's exactly right. 1 target this season, but last week a part of the problem with his output was that there's some garbage time there with Dearness Johnson, but also again just not involved in. They don't trust him in passing situations. You look at pass routes: 23 for Johnson, 6 for Tank Bigsby. I mean, we want some guys to push for 6 targets in these situations. He ran 6 pass routes, so he's lucky if he gets even 1 target on those plays. That's a slight concern, but the good news is. Look, if they were playing like Buffalo or something, might be a different conversation. They're playing New England. Game script should favor Bigsby. So if they lead throughout this game, something they haven't done much this season, he could push for 20 carries if everything goes right. So that makes me feel good about him. Touchdown opportunity, certainly there. The Patriots, by the way, on an efficiency level, 5 yards per carry, one of the worst in the NFL, and 8 touchdowns. It's 4th most to that position. So I do feel good about him as a borderline RB2.
Yeah, 5 of 6 running backs so far this year, when you're talking about each of the weeks, have reached at least 14 fantasy points, and 5 of those guys have reached the end zone. So when you're talking about Tank, needing to be able to get in the end zone, there's definitely a chance that he can make that happen
He
this
just
week.
has to do it on the ground.
Yep.
Dearness Johnson is not a bad player. He is a useful pass catcher
Absolutely.
as well. But if this team is up 14 early in the game, would anybody here be surprised?
No.
So
By the way, just to add this, Johnson last had a game with double-digit touches in 2021. Wow.
Was that the game when he played for the Browns?
Like week 18, he had like 25
it
touches
was a
or
Thursday
something.
night football game against the Broncos.
I think that he had like 3 that season where he had a lot of volume.
Yeah, it was crazy. I'll never forget because I remember being out watching the game with some friends and me playing against the guy who picked up Dearness Johnson. And he's going off. And he did go off.
It was like the Jerome Harrison game or...
He did go off. He did go off.
Last week in a
16-teamer,
I have like Ramondre and CMC and like I was just a mess and I picked up last second Sean Tucker, threw him in there.
No, you didn't.
Just a cool 35 fantasy points.
You did not. You played Sean Tucker last week?
I mean, it was a desperation move.
Yeah, no.
Why did you not bring that up on the Wednesday show?
I don't know. I forgot about it.
Me, by the way. I
forgot about it.
Me, the guy who's in a 16. You want to hear what I did last weekend?
Tell me.
Me, the 16-team guy who's in a league that I have Ramondre and also Devin Singletary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I picked up JaMychal Hasty and Aaron Gray. You know how many points they got?
4. I don't know.
Maybe if they were lucky.
Not good.
Lord.
Field, what week did you say he had the all the attempts that he had in 2021?
Thursday night game.
You thought it was a Thursday night football game?
I don't remember.
Browns are
exactly.
famous for those random huge games like that. I don't know.
Pierre
I'm just
Strong
curious.
Jr. incoming
Yeah,
this
he's
weekend.
this week. Yeah.
I never understand how your brain can like remember things that happened 3 seasons ago on a very specific week, and not just that week, but also it was a Thursday night football game that week. Like,
here's the backstory. I was over on Nantucket. I remember this, and that only happens during the late portion of the season when we were doing, I think, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday show. So I got out of Dodge after the show on Thursday, went home. Man, went home. I went to Nantucket.
So it was actually during his wedding. He was on his phone watching that. That's why it's memorable.
I took it one step further. I was going to a wedding. That's what it was. That's right. Our best friends. I was the officiant of a wedding. This was their oldest kid just turned 2. So this might have been 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, this is all coming together now. Very, very good podcasting right here.
We're just watching Field fix his brain right here on the.
We're watching Daniel research stuff.
I've got it figured out. I mean, he's had 3 games with 20 or more touches.
Yep. Yeah, all the same season, I think.
Probably.
They had he had a week 18 in 2022. He did against the Bengals.
That's what I mentioned. Yeah, that's the most recent one.
But he also had one against the Browns, November 14th. Was it November 14th against the New England Patriots, or was it October 21st against the Denver Broncos?
That's it. Thursday night football.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, baby.
How do you
October 21st?
The idea that your brain remembers these things, Field, I'll tell you what.
Because you know what, Daniel? I can't remember crap that actually matters.
By the way, D'Ernest is short for the Ernest. In fact, the Ernest Johnson. People don't know that.
Do we just tell him
Show's over.
Tell him that you should leave? I think you should leave, Mike.
Show's over.
I think. All right.
PowerPoint him out right now.
That was a good dad joke for what it was there. I did like
it was one of those jokes that like it started off so slow and then just kept heating up and more and more. By the end of it, I was like, that's the best joke I've
That was a really good one.
Gotta watch FF now.
Good one.
Sunday mornings.
Let's talk about the other side of this matchup, guys. You mentioned a handful of times Patriots are bad at stopping other teams' running backs. What about the Patriots running backs themselves? Ramondre Stevenson taking on this Jacksonville Jaguars defense. And listen, Ramondre has been the guy in this backfield in spite of the mini timeout that he was put in by his coach. He is still clearing away the number 1 running back on this Patriots team.
So a couple thoughts here. First of all, I'm very dubious that he plays this Sunday. I think there's a real chance he's not available. We might find out as soon as tonight, by the way.
I would love that.
The Patriots leave for London tonight. So
Oh, good call. Yeah, we'll know if he doesn't go. Yeah.
I don't think they have to say whether he travels, but their head coach, Gerard Mayo, is big into transparency these days, including like announcing he's going to bench a player, announcing they're going to make starting lineup changes, saying the offensive line was not a problem at the beginning of the season, and then saying 3 weeks later it's actually a huge problem. Whatever. I digress. It's been a thing, yeah. But you were talking about how Austin Eckler like is kind of primed for that like change of pace role. Antonio Gibson is like that. And I'm not making that comparison because Austin Eckler now plays the Antonio Gibson role in DC. It just was very clear last weekend. 13 carries for 17 yards for Antonio Gibson. A dud. Dud city. Dud. It'll be a little better than that for sure this weekend if he does start, but I don't have great optimism about Antonio Gibson, even if Ramondre is out. I have medium optimism.
Yeah, he had 16 touches, but our warning was like, this is a guy that's probably going to be viewed as a committee back, and they're going to use other guys. He only played 51% of the snaps. Hasty played 29%. Terrell Jennings off the practice squad, 22%. Usually those guys get 1 or 2. Yeah, but still, I mean, that might be they're playing Jacksonville. It should be a little more competitive, but nonetheless, Gibson under 13 fantasy points for the 25th time in his last 26 games. That's just, he is what he is at this point. We had high hopes for him his first couple of years because he did have some high volume seasons, and he was like the mini CMC comps with his passing. Remember, he's a former wide receiver and then just never really got to that level. But now he's.
Do we think we can put an end to those? to be clear, those were not offered up initially by fantasy analysts. That was his coach.
Yeah.
His offensive coordinator, Scott Turner, was like, some CMC in his game.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be honest. I think anytime that we compare guys to the number one player in the game, like we've learned our lesson that like that's just usually those comparisons don't go well.
I think generally speaking, I'm going to shy away from them. But if Ramondre does play, by the way, I think he's in a really good spot. Like these past couple of weeks, I guess last week specifically, might have actually been a really good thing for two things have happened over the last week that I think are good for Ramondre's season-long outlook when he's back from this injury. One, it's clear how bad they need him. He's their best offensive player, and it ain't close, right? Two, and I'm a little bit weary that I'm putting too much stock into one game, but the Patriots look more passable as an offense now with Drake.
With Drake, yeah.
Like defenses at least have to account for something they didn't have to account for with Jacoby Brissett. And I suspect Drake May will get better as each week goes on. The entire fantasy community, by the way, is in on Drake May as like a potential sleeper this week. If he crushes it, things will be a little more exciting for this Patriots offense going forward.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
If he crashes down to earth, and it's like, crap, never mind. Why do we do this to ourselves?
And this applies if Stevenson comes back. This applies to him as a good RB2 play, and if he's out, it applies to Antonio Gibson as a passable flex option. This is a good matchup. Again, Jacksonville 5th most fantasy points to running backs, 15 or more allowed to a running back in 5 of their 6 games so far this season. They've been okay against the run, but they just stink against running backs in the passing game. So still some opportunity.
Yeah, both of these defenses stink against running backs. This should just be a game where they both run the ball as much as possible.
What are you guys picking in this game? I'm asking this for a specific reason. Okay.
I would take the Patriots.
Okay. I'll take the Jags as well. But if the Patriots win, is Doug Peterson the coach on Monday?
No. Okay. I don't think so.
Calling our shot now. What are the chances that the Sunday morning there are usually big headline reports from the national reporters? What are the chances that that's like one of the central talking points Sunday morning? Like, hey, Doug Peterson is basically coaching for his job. I'm going to go with high.
I would say high.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been
Pete, that's a popular topic this time of year too. We've already had a coach firing too. Yeah. Why do you ask that?
Because
in general?
no, I'm just wondering. I'm just curious if you guys like. I see it that this is
it's already been a talking point. I feel like. Yeah.
Well, you know something, Mike. Some of us are too busy researching fantasy football stats.
So sorry,
about
Mike.
Real football.
I don't know.
So,
Gosh, I don't ask weird questions.
I mentioned
how's
this.
the weather on that high horse of yours, Mike? Jesus.
I mentioned this the other day. I think it was yesterday, or maybe it was the day before. But like, it just feels like everything about this team is underperforming. When you look at all the skill position players that they have, and you look at everything going on, it's a very.
That's always what I think about. I think about how the team looked on paper coming into the season. Are they overachieving? Like, I feel like, for example, the Giants feel like they're overachieving based on their roster. Jags should be better than this. They're underachieving again. It's just not acceptable with the players they have.
I have done something to make my mic loose, unfortunately. My microphone, not Mike. Mike, you're already plenty loose over there.
Maybe if you got to the show on time, you would have set
Wow.
that up. All right.
What happened is Daniel's microphone got loose because his elbow inadvertently hit it. Mike got loose because he had several Miller Lite.
That's what it was right before the show. All right. Another conversation here. Another running back room that we got to talk about. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike, you just mentioned that you started Sean Tucker in a desperation play last week.
I'm so mad at you.
Obviously, Bucky Irving is still there as the back number 2 that we think is going to be in this backfield. Rachaad White did not play last week. The problem right now, Field and Mike, is that they play on Monday Night Football, don't have a practice report yet. We're really waiting for today to be able to happen to see what the latest is on Rachaad White. What's the early sense that you get on whether or not he's going to play or not play?
He's got a chance. I think he's got a chance. I think we should have the conversation as if Rachaad White does play on Monday night. And then we can give you the quick synopsis if he does not play.
Okay.
If he does play, then even though I have been sort of like, the not anti-Rachaad White guy, but like, I was cooler on him than most coming into the season, and he has not been great so far. This season has Rachaad White. Over the past couple of games, he's done something different. He started to run the football effectively. 20 carries for 121 yards over his last 2 games that he actually played. I've got him as RB27 this week, though, because we have not seen nearly the volume and nearly the touchdowns this year from Rachaad White that we saw last year. But in the good on the plus department, if you're looking for the silver linings as to why he is still the guy when Bucky Irving is also in the mix, he has played 67% of the snaps. Rachaad White. That's 10th most amongst all running backs. He's got 3+ targets in 4 or 5 games. So despite some negative regression from last year. Negative regression or just regression?
Worse.
Yeah.
I know. We know what you mean.
Okay. Despite some regression from last year, still RB27 for me, ahead of Bucky.
Yeah, I'm at 28 right now. It's also a brutal matchup here against Baltimore. Second fewest yards, 4th fewest fantasy points, and NFL low 2.9 yards per carry to that
That seems
position. But you're right. They trust him. They like him. He's a solid player. And it's also sometimes you just have to listen to what the coaches are telling you. And they like the guy. He's their starting back. He was near the top in touches, targets, snaps, and routes last year. He's a feature player. And you're right. The last 2 games, he ran the ball pretty effectively. Also, last week, and look, I've seen this because I posted like the stats of Bucky Irving, who played well, and Sean Tucker last week. And people are like, oh, did you even bother watching the game? That was all garbage time with Tucker. No, it wasn't. 1/3 of his production was in garbage time. He had 20 points before they got to a point where the game was decided and Irving wasn't playing. And then Tucker basically had a drive where he just crushed it right down the field. But he already had a touchdown, was involved in the passing game. So he was already cruising in the first place. So I think my hesitation here with White is that if he's back this week, they might use 3 guys. I think they like Tucker. There's a reason as an undrafted player, he made the team. He wasn't very good last year, played a little early in the season and then not at all the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But they want to give him at least like 3, 4, 5 carries. I think they could mix in 3 guys.
I would
kind of
hate
a hesitation
that.
here.
Can I just say how much I hate that? I know your favorite thing in the world is running back by committees because you talk about it basically nonstop.
Oh,
That's what you should go
nature of the league.
as Halloween. I don't know how you do it, but you should be a running back by committee for
No
Halloween.
comment.
You should just, I have an idea. You wear like the helmet of one back, then you wear like a jersey of a different back.
There you go.
Then you get a tattoo of a different back. On your arm.
That's what it is.
Rashad White tattoo.
Yeah.
All right, got it.
Why not?
I already have I have my costume ready to roll. So I mean,
okay.
it's still in the process of purchasing it, but I know what I'm doing. So
Okay,
I have
all
a
right.
plan. I'm not going to say anything else.
Well,
Just like you're not telling us.
I am not
have
telling you
something
guys.
planned.
I got something
How about you?
that's
Do you have
going
something
on.
up your sleeve?
I'm going as Gardner Minshew. I'm kidding.
that's a new
That's an
one.
old standby.
I've got.
You're not
I've got
Alan
some good
Lazard.
options.
I don't even know
I've
what
got
we're
some
doing.
good options here. Don't you worry.
I will just to close the book on this.
Lazard, but
Well, yeah. Now that we've already got everything,
I got a jersey, so yeah.
close the book on this. It's just clear, and you guys have already mentioned it, but Rashad White is the clear pass receiving back in this offense. Coming into last week, obviously he didn't play last week. He had almost twice as many receptions as Bucky Irving, so he's getting way more work in the passing game. And if he can be more effective in the running game, like you mentioned over the last 2 weeks, that would be really great for him.
By the way, if White is out though, Irving's the preferred choice. He still did dominate the snaps in this game as good as Tucker was. I mean, he was effective when he was on the field, but the snaps were 46-27 in favor of Irving, and that includes Tucker having that last drive or so of garbage time. So yeah,
if
it
White
is a
out,
tough matchup.
He doesn't go up much higher than where Rashad White would be because Baltimore, for me at least, Baltimore has yet to give up 50 rushing yards to a running back. They only have 3 rushing touchdowns allowed to running backs so far this year.
That seems bad.
6th fewest fantasy points to the position. So yeah, it's a very tough matchup here.
I said 4th fewest. How do we do? Oh, maybe it's points per game. I'm doing points per game.
That might be
So some
why.
buys.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's
all
fair.
right.
That's
All
fair.
right. It was like, how do we
have different
we're aligned
numbers?
on those?
Yeah.
That checks out.
But very important because this is a Monday Night Football game to be able to check their practice reports as they come out throughout the week because today is the first time that you're going to be able to get that. Also, check out Fantasy Football Now on Sunday morning where you get the most in-depth information on all of the updates, especially injury updates from our very own Stefania Bell. Let's talk about a new segment. Lock or not? We locking some guys into our fantasy lineup at the quarterback position, or are we locking them out of our fantasy lineup? Let's start with Baker Mayfield.
This one's easy, right?
Yeah,
Taking on the Baltimore Ravens.
Make this quick.
It seems like we should be able to. We all have him inside the top 5 this week, Field Yates.
I've got him as quarterback 3. Let me just give you the numbers here, and you tell me why you wouldn't want to start him. He's first in passing touchdowns. He's first in combined passing and rushing touchdowns amongst all quarterbacks. He's got 3 top 2 finishes. He's got 5 top 7 finishes. He's second in points per game amongst quarterbacks. And only the Jaguars have allowed more fantasy points this season to opposing quarterbacks than the Ravens. Tell me why this guy's in an absolute lock.
That's it.
I have no reason.
Okay,
I can add a little more, which is that he's pacing for 385 rushing yards. His prior career high, 194. I mean, that's a
Doubling up then.
big step up for him. He also has 2 rushing touchdowns. His last multi-rush touchdown season was 2019. So
In college still then?
no, he was not.
He was not.
I think it was his second year in the league. But you might say, well, that's going to drop off. I don't know. Like, it seems like it's a thing. Like, he's actually running the ball a little bit more and going all out. So, yeah, he's been consistently really good. You mentioned the matchup, too. The Ravens slow Josh Allen, but 20+ to Burrow, Dak, Daniels, and then 15 to Mahomes. So, like, it's a good spot for him all across the board. He's playing well. He's adds to his floor with the rushing. So much to like. Yes, he's a lock.
Love that. Love to hear that. I mean, it just feels like another situation where Baker should be able to smash. Do you think that he has the best book club in the NFL, or is there another player that potentially has? Do you remember those commercials that he used to do?
Oh, the book club.
Yeah.
Andrew Luck was always the famous guy for the book club.
And, well, you know what? I really miss that Andrew Luck Twitter account too. Captain Andrew Luck. Yeah, for what it's worth.
Yeah, he is a book club. I thought wasn't he a farmer? I thought he was a farmer.
he was
because he does
a Civil War general. He was a
no Mayfield.
Oh,
because
Baker Mayfield a farmer?
No, he grows corn. He charges $1 an ear. You know that?
We already told you to leave once, Mike.
The show is so done.
Like, what are you?
It's a good price for corn.
That's
if you need
actually
something.
a really good joke. How has that never come up?
I'm not gonna
before?
lie. I was gonna use that on FF now, but now I just burnt it, so I can't.
That's a good one.
Maybe I still will.
That's.
Oh my God, that was so good. So good. So good.
I had that ready. I had that ready for FF now down the road sometime, but
no,
I had to.
This
No,
is great.
Daniel and I will go crickets if you use it on FF now.
I can't now. Now it's burnt.
That's so good.
Unbelievable.
You're so good at this.
Amazing. You are.
You really should write a book. You should write and I realize you take all your material from other people's books, but you should be like one of those Twitter aggregators and just make a book.
Like, I see all these losers. I'm sorry, these people on Twitter that just literally just take everybody else's content and just post it and just, hey, like as if pisses me off. Pisses me off to no end.
That bothers me too. And there's news, like say you tweet news and then
Matt LaFleur tells reporters that Jordan Love is going to practice today. It's like, okay, were you there?
Yeah, but then there's all these accounts that are just like Jordan Love will practice today. Send tweet.
Yeah,
like what?
So ridiculous.
I don't need that. Like what am I following?
Not only do I not need it, but there are people like our own Rob Demovsky, who I consider one of the best beat reporters in the freaking world, who are showing up every goddamn day.
Yeah, right.
Making the effort to be there to serve people that follow the Packers for ESPN, and instead some noob with a Twitter handle goes, Matt LaFleur tells reporters.
Yeah, it's just trying to get engagement on tweet. It's really bizarre. It's unnecessary.
Those reports, those Twitter accounts, they know who they are.
Oh yes, they do.
You're right.
I don't want to spend any more time on it. You're just gonna make me
that's not what I do.
I've been having a fun show. I don't want to get frustrated.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Kirk Cousins. Here's another guy. I think Kirk has been a little bit more vexing this year, especially with where he's finished a number of different times. However, I do think this is another situation where it feels like he has a decent matchup this week. The Seahawks giving up some big games so far this year. 27 fantasy points to Jared Goff, 24 fantasy points to Brock Purdy, 22 fantasy points to Daniel Jones. You like being able to see
notable about that too.
All the last 3 games.
Last 3 games.
The last 3 games are those exact 3 games that Daniel just brought up after they faced I would say that like those guys might be slightly more accomplished quarterbacks than Skylar Thompson and Jacoby Brissett and somebody else random that they actually did a decent job against way back in the day. So, things have come back down to earth in a major way for the Seahawks secondary. And Kirk Cousins, 4th in passing yards. He's top 10 in passing touchdowns. Yes, he had a 509-yard passing game. And yes, he kind of let us down last week in a great spot, but he is my quarterback 6 this weekend.
Yeah, they scored 38 points in that game. So sometimes it's just bad luck. Like,
exactly.
If Bijan trips on one of them plays or gets tackled, he might throw it in on the next play. That could happen multiple times. I think Algier scored 2. They have 4 offensive touchdowns in consecutive games. They're just one of them situations where they're like a lot of new parts to start the season. They've just gotten better and better and better over the last couple of weeks. Also, fast-moving offense, second fastest-moving offense in the NFL too. Just adds more snaps. We love that.
Yeah. So Baker is a lock this week.
I think Cousins is a lock.
Kirk Cousins is a lock as well for our fantasy lineups. What about Patrick Mahomes? Have we reached the spot? And guys, I need you to take over because I can't continue to be the one to just say bad things about Patrick Mahomes. But have we reached the point where maybe we can consider him in fantasy? Or are you outside the top 10 to 12?
Is it good or bad?
Let's start with the good. Let's be positive.
I was really encouraged by how they played last Monday night when they were last on the field. That was their week 5 game before their bye. I thought he looked great. It was his most passing yards in a game this season. Just could not find the end zone. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why he is not a lock for me this week. He is quarterback 19 on my board against San Francisco. The Chiefs have a major red zone problem. It's good if you have Harrison Butker as your kicker in fantasy. But let's get into some of the important numbers for fantasy football. Patrick Mahomes is 16th in passing yards this year.
That's bad.
He's 19th in passing touchdowns.
That's bad.
People, I concede he has not played as many games as other quarterbacks, but still. He is 16th in rushing yards. He is 24th in total fantasy points.
Yikes.
He is tied for 27th, like in a bad way, for most interceptions thrown this season. They can't finish in the red zone. I would be looking for a different option this week.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, he has had a floor where if you start him, you're like, all right, at least I didn't get like a 3. But he's finished between QB 12 and QB 18 in all 5 games. So he's just been it's like those, those just boring pocket quarterbacks where you're like, you're just going to get solid QB1 or QB2 numbers every week. Like Phillip Rivers, like toward the last 7 years of his career. That's where Mahomes is right now. His average depth of throw is a career low at just a hair over 5 yards. And he's pacing for 282 rushing yards, which would be his lowest since 2019. His last rushing touchdown was in 2022. And look, I will say this. The Niners have not been as dominant as a pass defense this season. So if you think that maybe this is a game where the Chiefs are trailing and they have to throw the ball out, maybe that gets him into the QB1 conversation. But he's done that so little since the middle of last year that there's not a lot of reason for fantasy confidence here.
Do you want to hear my reason for the most, like the most compelling reason I can think of for confidence in Patrick Mahomes this week? The most compelling
game script.
Nope.
I'm going to guess
big game.
It's his birthday.
Big game energy.
I don't know that. Yes, big game energy. They are now a 1-point dog against the 49ers.
Oh, underdogs.
And the idea that, like, hey, despite the fact that we're 5-0 and we just keep taking care of business, people are counting us out. People are starting to say things about us.
Yep.
That to me is the scariest thing, that if I am facing Patrick Mahomes, is in the back of my brain.
Yeah.
It's just the idea that Patrick Mahomes just, what's the old, I don't think this is a fact as far as the real football is concerned, but for fantasy football purposes, as the late, great Toby Keith would say, I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was, right? Like, Patrick Mahomes may not have great games every single week in fantasy, but he might have a couple of explosion games this season. And it just feels like playing against the team they've defeated in the Super Bowl twice, the team that just wants nothing more than to get over the hump of the Kansas City Chiefs. San Francisco is going to come in with a lot of confidence. The Chiefs may say, no, we're good. We got this still.
And I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but he's had some big, like, statistical fantasy games in the playoffs last year. He was rolling. So when they kind of need him to step up and put the team on his shoulders, he's done it. It just feels like, especially with that 1 extra game, which feels like 6 extra games. Yeah. It's just like, I feel like the Chiefs and other teams have gotten into this mode where, like, let's just do things differently and cruise through the season and just play conservatively and run the ball and play defense. Yeah. And then they can change it up come playoff time or when the big games approach. And that feels like what the Chiefs are doing. So you're right. Maybe this is one of them games where he puts up big numbers.
Big 2-week stretch for San Francisco coming.
Yes.
2-game stretch.
Yeah.
They played the Chiefs and the Cowboys. Both teams coming off of a bye. Not that the Cowboys have impressed anybody this season, but still, they are, I would assume, going to be playing very desperately when they play the 49ers in week 8. San Francisco at 3-3, I think, needs to split at minimum to stay in the top of the NFC race, which they might already be out of the top of the NFC race. I'm talking about like number 1 seed race, given how spectacular the entire NFC North is.
Well,
once those teams start playing each other, they're going to inevitably knock some losses. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know who, like, any NFC North team could beat any other NFC North team. Like,
tell me about
it. The Lions could go 1-5 in that division and be actually be the best team in the division. Like, it's just,
thank you.
I don't think they will. I'm just saying.
I understand. I appreciate
it. It was like one of the teams is going to. One of the teams is going to have a bad record in that division.
There a team that went 1-5 in the division and won the division recently? I can't remember who it was, but anyway.
If there was one of us that would know, I would think
it'd probably be me.
It'd probably be you, Field. When was the last week that Patrick Mahomes had 20 fantasy points?
Week 6 of last season. I don't know. Something like that.
Week 7 of last season?
Week 12. Week 12 of last season. Since week 8 of last year, he has only had 1 game with 20 fantasy points. We talked about where he finished. Like, it's unbelievable to feel like his ceiling has just been taken away from him in this offense.
So I've got this Superflex Dynasty League team where I drafted, this was very early in Jalen Hurts' career. So at one point, my 3 quarterbacks were Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and Jalen Hurts. Think about how different I feel about that now compared to when I drafted the team.
Seriously.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, obviously. Like, I thought my team was awesome. My team is
in there
floundering right now because those quarterbacks apparently now are all mid. Hurts is still good.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. Everything I've invested into quarterbacks in our Dynasty League and I've traded so much, including a guy you just traded for this week. You got Barkley. I traded him in a deal for with other things for Herbert, who's one of the worst starting quarterbacks in fantasy right now. Not to mention trades for Watson and Russell Wilson, who I acquired from you.
You and I as well.
Yeah, it just
was that for Derrick Henry?
Derrick Henry, that was years ago. Yeah, so if I
what,
trade for a quarterback,
are we like probably 7 years into that Dynasty League?
I had Derrick Henry at one point. I traded him to you, I think, in a deal with Lamar Jackson, if I remember.
I drafted him and traded him
Yes,
pretty
to
quickly
me,
for a
and then I
quarterback.
traded him to you, and then I traded them again. So I got Derrick Henry's been traded like 10 times.
Yes. He's like the Cam Akers. Like he just sort of like keeps going back. Someone keeps paying for him over and over. Yeah.
Well,
It's been a
I'm
good
glad
one.
I got my
Derrick
title
Henry
last
now.
year because it's going to be a while without a
All right.
quarterback.
Let's do
He's
a.
the best dynasty team that stinks this year I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like when I, if
Well,
I
that's the
were,
quarterbacks. They're killing me.
but you have a great
Mark
team.
Andrews.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a handful of players in this Thursday night football game. And by a handful, I mean like there's not a lot to really discuss, unfortunately, in this
And
one.
we're done. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the lineup locks for the Saints. You got Alvin Kamara, and that's it for a lineup lock.
it for lineup.
That is it. For the Broncos, I'm not sure that there even is a lineup lock on this team. Cortland Sutton and maybe Javonte Williams would be like lower end flex plays if you needed to use them, but that's still feeling like a dart
Denver
throw.
defense?
32, yeah.
Maybe both defenses. Certainly the Denver defense
Denver
lineup
defense
block.
for
Yeah.
sure. I've got Cortland Sutton as wide receiver 32. Javonte Williams is running back 25. I think, though, I'm not sure that you're starting him tonight in a 10-team league, but I think Bo Nix is kind of an interesting player to discuss just in general right now.
Agreed.
Been a top 12 quarterback in 3 of his past 4 games.
Yep.
He has 7 touchdowns in those 4 games. But he hasn't thrown for more than 216 passing yards in this game. He's getting the job done because quietly, Bo Nix is using his legs.
That's
quite a
right.
bit.
Yeah.
37 rushes so far this season, 180 rushing yards, which you do the math, that puts him on pace for over 500 rushing yards this season.
That's a good season.
That's a lot of rushing yards. And by the way, he's got 12 design rushes. He's got 19 scrambles this year. Bo has that in his game. Fans of the SEC recall what used to be the SEC. Let me be clear, because I turned on the TV a couple days ago and they announced that somehow the Toronto Raptors in the SEC. I don't know if that's possible, but that's apparently that's the next thing in college
That's
sports
how it
expansion. But that was part of his game, right? He was this razzle-dazzle quarterback early on in his career at Auburn. He became a pocket passer at Oregon who had some rushing upside as well, but the offensive line was so good at Oregon. He got the ball out so fast at Oregon that he was not rushing nearly as much. Now he's rushing quite a bit. He finds ways to innovate with his legs. I've got him as quarterback 16 this week. The matchup is a kind of a tricky one to figure out, though, Mike, because up until last week, it was dominant. Are you still certain it's dominant?
Yeah. It's set on the season, 7th fewest fantasy points allowed. Only one quarterback has reached or cleared 13.4 fantasy points. That was Baker Mayfield. And they faced Mahomes, Dak, Hurts, Cousins, Bryce Young, cross him off. But yeah, it's a pretty decent group of quarterbacks, mostly QB1s, and they've been really good. So it is a tricky matchup, but you're right. I mean, it's not just the rushing, which he's QB6 in rushing attempts at quarterback. He's also 10th in pass attempts, so he's getting the volume as a thrower as well, and he's showing progress. He had 2 total touchdowns in weeks 1 through 3. Both were rushing, so no passing touchdowns. He has 6 total touchdowns in his last 3 games, so 2 per game. It's a good number to keep you in that quarterback 1 conversation. So I think he's more of a good QB2 this week. Certainly not a guy I feel super comfortable streaming, but especially because this might be just like a quick, low-scoring game. I mean,
That's probably the fear.
the Saints don't have an offense right now. So
The Broncos just say, let's just run the crap out of the ball tonight.
Yeah.
Try to, at least.
yeah, I want to see. I guess we'll talk about Javonte here, but yeah, I want to see Audric Estime. I want to see them.
I would love to see what Audric Estime. He's been on a lot of my IR positions in a bunch of my leagues, so I've been waiting to
try
see him.
something.
Yeah, he had 2 carries, though, last week, did Audric Estime. So I've got Javonte, just to get right into I've got him as running back 25 for me.
I'm
Javonte
26.
Williams, who's coming off of a season high in terms of his snap percentage in a single game. He's got back-to-back games with 6 targets. The efficiency, though, once again, has been uninspiring for Javonte Williams.
Yeah, he's 3rd in targets among running backs this season. And you're right. Like, he had them back-to-back better games, 80-plus yards in 2 straight, had the dud last week. But they were like decent matchups. And we're like, all right. And then he comes back to earth last week. But this is a good matchup against the Saints. 5.4 yards per carry they're allowing to running backs. That is highest in the NFL. Also, 8 yards per target is 2nd highest. So they're bad against running backs in the running game and the passing game. Crushed by the Bucs running backs, the backup running backs last week with Irving and Sean Tucker. So there's a chance here if you're looking for a reason tonight to throw Javonte in there and into a running back spot, not a flex spot, a running back spot. Don't forget about that. Give yourself some flexibility. There's some reason for optimism, but he just has not really improved from last year. And I'm worried it's not like Jaleel McLaughlin's been that good and he's an undersized back. I don't think he's going to be the feature back. No. But estimate, there was some hype there. They gave him a look last week, had a nice run. Like, I would not be shocked if a few weeks from now we're saying Estime is getting, 13, 14, 15 carries. Like they have to try something. And he is the guy. Tyler Bidet almost took the job a couple weeks ago before he had that serious injury. So Estime's I love him as an end of bench guy just because how many guys like that have a shot to be a lead back?
I had him in a league right now. Let's see if he's available. Yeah,
Look at
interesting.
that. Look at that.
Now he's
Way to go, Mike Clay.
Now he's not going to pan out. God.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This is one of
I
those
think I
things.
had him in. I think I have him in FF now, if I'm not mistaken, or Focus. I have him in a bunch of those random leagues. Drafted him in the Dynasty League.
Yep.
I had like no picks from trades in that Dynasty League this year, and I drafted Braylon Allen and Audric Estime. I think that's all the picks I had because it was traded for Jacobs last year.
Yeah, you made a lot of moves.
I think I traded a 2 this year for a 1 next year.
Let's talk about on the other side of this game. You mentioned there's not going to be very much Saints offense. Okay, so Chris Olave is out right now, still dealing with concussion. Rashid Shaheed, we got some not great news on. Obviously going to go underneath the knife for some surgery on a torn meniscus. We'll figure out whether or not he is going to miss just a couple of weeks or there's a potential, it sounded like, for a season-ending surgery here. We'll find out more hopefully a little later today, and if not today, hopefully Stefania can give us an update tomorrow on where Rashid Shaheed is at.
I think there's a chance we'll find out by today. So this is a fairly common thing that's come up in sports recently. It's like when you have these meniscus repairs, you can either repair it or you have to go and replace it. The replacement, obviously, much more time required to get to it. This, for my basketball fans out there, Karl Anthony Towns had this last year during the Timberwolves' great season, and he ended up needing not the replacement, but the repair, so he returned. We'll find out on Rashid Shaheed, but it did not sound like there was a ton of optimism right now in that.
Feels crappy because if you have had Rashid Shaheed, you've been feeling like, man, I found one. A little bit later on in the draft, it wasn't a premium pick, and this guy has been paying off. He's not just... I don't want to make the full comparison to Jameson Williams, but like Rashid Shaheed was like a deep guy, right? That's the way that like a lot of people thought about him coming into the season, and he's turned into more than just that.
Yeah.
English State's finest.
Yeah, and he had a dud last week from a receiving perspective with Spencer Rattler there, but he had a return touchdown, which just adds that extra value to him. So yeah, he's been awesome. But so no Olave, no Shaheed means Bub means business.
That's right.
Oh, that's who I took in the 5th round of that draft. That was my late flyer, was Bub Means. So yeah, didn't get a lot of run early, but they took. Basically what happened last week was Olave went out with a concussion. They threw Bub Means in there right away, and they moved some guys around. Cedric Wilson was like moved to the outside, and Mason Tipton is that's a receiver.
From?
I don't know.
Yale.
So yeah,
wow.
Mason Tipton, Bub Means, Cedric Wilson should be their big 3. They're going to call up a couple guys from the practice squad today. Totally spacing on who they have.
Probably Little Jordan Humphrey, who's actually on the Broncos.
He's not. Yeah, I know. They'll find a way. They'll find a way to get him. No, there are some. It's like Dante Pettis, and I forget who else.
It's going to be. It's going to be Traquan Smith. Like the
I don't think he's on the practice squad, but you're right.
Yeah. I'm saying he's not, but like he'll sign to the practice.
They're calling him right now.
Yeah, today.
I guess where I was going with that was if you need a flyer in a deep like I would rather avoid this. It's Spencer Rattler. It's not like it's Derek Hart. Spencer Rattler. There's no Taysom Hill. The top 2 receivers, they're going to struggle. They're going to try to run the ball. Kendry Miller should be up for this game. Maybe he gets some run. But if you need one, Bub Means went 5 for 45 and had a touchdown, 8 targets last week. But it's the first game where he's seen extended work. Yeah. And Denver, even without Pat Surtain, 1 touchdown and the fewest fantasy points to receivers. You don't get that from one player. That's a good pass defense. This could be a rough one for the Saints.
Bub Means can fly. He's a 5th round pick out of Pittsburgh, started his career at Tennessee. This guy can really run. That's probably what I'm hoping for if I'm playing Bub Means. Mike, I know feels differently. I think, Daniel, you might align with me on this. It's like, I really hate playing fringe players on Thursday night. Like if I'm playing, if I have, there's not a good example in tonight's game, but whatever. If it's the Ravens playing the Colts, the Colts tonight, and like I have Derrick Henry, like I'm playing him, and if he duds for some reason, I'm like, well, what was I going to do? Not
live
Derrick
with it.
Henry,
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
But these fringe guys, right? Like if I have Javonte and it's Javonte versus somebody else, I'm like, God, there's a part of me that's going to pick the somebody else because if Javonte goes for 4.5 points, I'm going to be sitting there staring at my phone for 3 days. Like, why did I do this? What an idiot I am.
Speaking of my soul.
It goes the other way too, because if you start him tonight because you're desperate at receiver and he catches a 62-yard touchdown, like you're going to be like, well, I'm off to a good start this week. Look at that nice projected total. I'm going to win by 30 this week. You can enjoy that all through the weekend. So
you bring up some good points there, Mike. However, sometimes I'm usually the optimistic guy around here. Yeah. Just, you're a little afraid of like the 4.5 points from Javonte Williams is all I'm saying. So Bub Means if you're pressed up against it and you need to start somebody, he is the most startable Saints wide receiver in my opinion tonight.
And to be clear, I have him ranked 62nd, so I projected for 7.4 points. And so I agree. I don't think you should be starting this guy.
Tough time right now. So do we think this all sets up, and not that anybody is not starting him? Is tonight like 9 rushes for 22 yards plus 9 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown for Alvin Kamara tonight?
See that.
Is that what this
Yeah,
is trending towards?
yeah. Sometimes on these short weeks, we talked about this with Bijan recently. Like maybe they try to scale him back a little bit, but I don't know if they can. Like,
with who?
They clearly do not trust Jamal Williams. Like even when Hill's been out, and Kendre's been out, he's just not getting any work at all.
Yep.
If they do it though, it would be like taking a look at Kendre Miller. But I think it's gonna.
That.
I think they're gonna
Dennis
lean.
Allen's comments.
I think they're gonna lean heavily on Kamara in this.
Agreed.
Game.
Yep.
That's where it's so tough not having Taysom Hill, because without Derek Carr,
People laugh. but it is
Taysom
tough.
Hill
Yeah.
was in this game. It's like, okay, they need a backup running back. They still don't have, like, not that they don't have a real quarterback, but like I could see him getting some quarterback run there, even with Spencer Rattler under center. They have a few design plays for him.
Someone's going to score a touchdown randomly tonight. Who is it?
It's gonna be Cedric Wilson, of course.
I'm gonna hope it's Foster Moreau. I'll tell you what, in case you want to have a little bit of extra
Well
fun
done.
playing in this game, we got a bet that you can go through, a fantasy focused parlay.
Whoa.
Any of the three, Alvin Kamara, Foster Moreau, Javonte Williams, and Cortland Sutton, any three to score a touchdown in this one. Odds were plus 900. They are now plus 1100. Tell you what, we've won 2 in a row, Mike Clay.
Can we make it 3?
Can we make it through? The hard part for this one, when trying to pick a parlay that was sent to us, is when the offenses are so small to begin with, so many guys are out. It's like, where are you going to throw your trust? Trust is a strong word, right?
Yeah,
But
you would expect more 12 personnel here for the Saints with their shortcomings, so that would help
100%.
Moreau get opportunities. He's already had a couple touchdowns, and if you need like a, maybe you had Dallas Goedert or you're in trouble at tight end, Juwan Johnson I think will be featured in this game as well. Former wide
Has to
receiver.
catch a pass,
Yeah, I think we saw an uptick for him last week. I think he's one of them guys. He's a guy that out of nowhere will have a 2 touchdown game. So. And again, I know it's not Derek Carr, it's Spencer Rattler, so. This could be a 13-7 game, It's it's going to be 41-38, but
let's hope that it's 41-38. This feels though like one of those games where I'm going to need our group chat to help propel me to the very end of the game, because it could be a tough one. This is one of those games I could see you accidentally falling asleep at halftime, because it might be a little slow with the way things are going here. So we're going to hope for.
I need some caffeine suggestions in my life from people, because we're about to begin Thursday night football.
Yep.
Saturday night we got Texas, Georgia. That's going to be a great game. Sunday, obviously, all day football. Monday, 2 games plus 9:00 start.
Mm-hmm.
I need suggestions in my life.
Doesn't feel great.
I hear mushroom coffee is legit. Have you guys heard of this?
No, I don't know.
Mushroom coffee apparently is all the rage.
Are we talking about the same kind of mushroom coffee?
I think it's like not the kind of mushrooms like the funny
Okay,
mushrooms.
Got it. Different mushrooms. Okay, no, then I do not know what you're talking about, Field Yates.
Okay. Apparently, mushroom coffee is the way to go.
I don't know. I know nothing about this.
I'm not a coffee guy.
Just,
How do you do it?
I've stopped. It's been really difficult, actually. I have caffeine 1 day a week. I used to drink.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Sunday?
Anytime I've started with caffeine, and then I'm working my way back from sugar, because like soda still has so much sugar in it. But I have noticed that it is so difficult for me to fall asleep the more that I have caffeine when I have like gone like long periods of time without it. So these late nights though, when we have like late double headers on Monday Night Football, that's when it's like I have a soda at like noon to propel me to the end of the game.
Mountain Dew needs to call you.
I don't drink Mountain Dew anymore because I'm out on all the caffeine.
What's your one drink that you have per week with caffeine?
It's not every once in a while, maybe every once in a while it will be Mountain Dew, but a lot of times it's something a little bit with less sugar in it than that.
Okay, so is there a less sugary one that we can talk to on your behalf?
Yeah, there's plenty of them. I mean, I'm a big
diet Mountain Dew.
You know what? Why not? Why
Diet
not?
Mountain Dew Incorporated.
Me and
If you're
Dale
out there
Earnhardt Jr.
listening right
Why
now,
not?
There you go. Good.
Daniel Dopp will be a great
done.
spokesperson for you.
I was a big fan, very big fan for a long time. I've just been trying to be a little bit healthier. That's the hard part. You get a little bit older, your body starts catching up with.
Tell me about it. My shoulder's still.
Mike.
I do water, by the way.
You used to be a
on
Propel
water.
guy, but now you're
Used to be Propel guy. Yeah. Yeah.
like them. But
back
now we're just back into water. Who are you picking in this game tonight? If you had to choose one,
Denver.
Broncos.
I'm taking.
I don't know. I mean, wow. Hey, maybe Spencer Rattler like shows that he's the real deal and gets it done. But I mean, yeah, Denver's 3-3, and you're missing 4 key players in that offense.
I am taking Denver as well, but I just want to say this.
America likes the Saints, right?
65% of the picks on Pigskin Pick'em have gone for the Saints. Only
Yeah, I saw
35% for Denver. I was shocked when I saw that.
Interesting.
So
65%. Wow.
I was very surprised.
Spencer Rattler's got a very loyal following.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's really what it is. Hey, another very fun show. Appreciate you. You mentioned college football. I want to ask really quickly, what do we need to know about this kid named Ashton Genty that we're going to be drafting at the very top of our draft boards? Because it sounds like there's like an iconic college season going on for this
It really
kid.
is. And I was gonna make a comparison, but then I realized it would invoke some bad fantasy vibes. But if you are in a dynasty league and you are thinking about next season already, the eyes can be on the Ashton Genty prize. Like every time I watch Boise State on Saturday, or I wake up the next morning because they play a lot of really late games and see the final box score, I'm like, there's just no way. There's just no way.
It looks like a video game, the numbers that he puts up.
He's on pace for like 9,000 yards and 200 touchdowns this year. He's ridiculous. He's an incredible player. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves with the draft, but my read as of October 17th is that this may not be a dominant draft. This feels like one that might be more known for the depth than it is the star power at the top. So I think Ashton Genty he could be regarded as a Bijan Robinson type prospect.
So he'll be the first overall pick of rookie drafts next year, you would think?
Yes, but might disappoint because, that's what happens when you get drafted by the Atlanta Falcons and our head coach. No, but I do think that, yes, I think there's a chance that if you were to sort of like bet my lot right now on a player to go first overall in rookie dynasty drafts next year, it would be
him.
From Boise
He's going to
State.
the Giants in the first round.
Dude, I mean, he's been crushing it. It's been unreal. When I hosted EBL last week, they were talking about how like his line to score 3 touchdowns, in one of his, it was still like almost minus 500 for him to score like multiple touchdowns because he has just been doing so good. He did so much. Like, this is one of those things. I'm not a huge college football guy. I lived through Field and Mel on first draft, like being able to come in and like that's where I get a lot of my information. But this is a name that I've been hearing a bunch in my circles where it's like I feel like you'll see a bunch of highlights from this kid. So I wanted to plant the seed early because it feels like an iconic football season.
Totally,
for this guy.
It's awesome. And college football, Mike, just to be clear, it's football, but is it the college level?
Amateur football. Okay.
I know you don't.
I should learn how to spell that name right now then. Got it. Okay.
You should.
Jeanty.
God, that's easy. I got that.
simple.
Gene Ty. And do you know what runs in your genes?
Diarrhea.
All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. It's always fun being able to do a Thursday show with you guys. Hey, make sure that you get your pigskin pick'ems in. Set your lineups correctly. Today's show is presented by Boost Mobile. Don't forget to love each other, be kind to yourself, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Hereditary. Everyone knows this.
Yes, everyone knows it's hereditary, Mike. We all know.
Speaking of which.
You're in the 06010.